Complete Hellboy Animated movie universe explored. Welcome to the darkly thrilling world of the Hellboy animated movies. Though the live-action films and comics usually steal the spotlight, the animated duo Hellboy, Sword of Storms, and Hellboy, Blood and Iron are like a delightful surprise party of their own. They deliver just as much punch, cleverness, and supernatural mayhem, and first hit the screens in 2006 and 2007 on Cartoon Network before they were out on DVD. These animated gems were brought to life by the dynamic duo of Guillermo del Toro and Hellboy mastermind Mike Mignola, with animation done by Japan's renowned Madhouse studio. Rumour has it that back then there were plans for a third animated movie in motion, Hellboy: The Phantom Claw, but it did not go beyond that. But that was years ago. Over the years, the attention shifted to live action or video games of Hellboy, but the revamping of the animated corpus was never done. The animated legacy of this franchise is absolutely begging for a bit more fanfare, don't you think? So, let's sink into these films and revel in their grandiose dark fantasy adventures that are as visually stunning as they are audibly delightful. If you appreciate our efforts, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more of this cartoon awesomeness. Hellboy Animated Sword of Storms, 2006. In 1944, amid the chaos of war, a demon was summoned to Earth, not a monstrous harbinger of doom as one might expect, but a baby, born from infernal rituals meant to tip the balance of power. This infant demon was found not by cultists or soldiers, but by a group of honourable men. These men, scientists and visionaries, refused to see him as a weapon. They raised him as their own, teaching him humanity, honour and kindness. The demon child grew under their care and came to be known simply as Hellboy. From this extraordinary beginning, there was the birth of the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, BPRD, an organization dedicated to investigating and neutralizing supernatural threats. Fast forward a few years, and that is how our story begins. The movie opens not at the start of a mission, but in the middle of one. Abe and Liz are deep within a ruined temple, ancient, wet, and riddled with slime. They're investigating the site of a vanished BPRD member, combing through moss-covered corridors and forgotten shrines. As they enter a central chamber, they make a grim discovery: the skeletal remains of their missing colleague. The air is heavy with something more than humidity. It hums with ancient energy. Abe, feeling it is kind of his responsibility to bring back his dead colleague's skeleton, accidentally activates a hidden mechanism in the floor. A tremor runs through the ruin as the walls shift. From the shadows emerge figures, not quite dead, not quite alive. Well, you know, in other words, bat-worshipping Mayan zombies. Draped in ceremonial tatters, they encircle them. Liz and Abe draw their weapons instinctively, prepared for combat, but the creatures remain eerily still. That stillness is broken by a crash. Hellboy storms in, already in combat with a monstrous creature, the massive, decaying leader of the undead bat cult. With his massive fist, and Hellboy battles the behemoth while Liz and Abe fend off the encroaching undead. The fight is vicious and chaotic, but they are not gaining any upper hand either. So ultimately, Abe asks Liz to unleash her power. Pyrokinesis. She sends one zombie an ember of flame. The next thing they know, every zombie is catching fire and bursting into flames. Like dominoes. Though victorious, Liz loses herself in her ability and only comes to her senses when Hellboy approaches her. Later on, the encounter serves as a reminder that Liz still has a tenuous grip on her abilities, and it haunts her immensely. While this unfolds, back in Japan, a new chapter quietly begins. Professor Sakai, an expert in Japanese folklore, has come into possession of an ancient scroll rumoured to contain forbidden knowledge. The scroll lies within a case sealed by incantations and symbols. With reverent care, Sakai opens it, speaking the archaic Japanese lines aloud. As he begins to read, a story long buried by time resurfaces. Centuries ago, two demonic brothers, Thunder and Lightning, ravaged the land of a Japanese daimyo. These spirits of the storm sowed chaos, flattening villages and terrifying the people. Desperate to save his land, the daimyo bargained with the demons. In exchange for peace, they could have his daughter. But not everyone was willing to accept this cruel deal. One of the daimyo's loyal samurai had fallen deeply in love with the daughter. Upon discovering the bargain, he spirited her away to a hidden shrine. Realizing that this would not be enough to shield her from divine wrath, he took up a mystical blade, the Sword of Storms. Imbued with ancient power, it was said to be the only weapon capable of containing the brothers. Suddenly, something goes haywire. The two spirits take possession of Professor Sakai's body. However, he continues reading the scroll. The warrior fought a valiant battle and ultimately imprisoned both spirits within the sword. However, even though his lands and daughter had been saved, the daimyo was not pleased. Since the warrior's actions meant the daimyo had broken a promise. In Japanese culture, the act of breaking a promise signals a grave mistake and brings dishonor to the person and his family who broke the promise. Naturally, in this case too, the daimyo was humiliated because of his broken promise, and he sought help from the gods. So in an act of vengeance, the gods turned the warrior to stone. Back in the present, as Professor Sakai finishes reading the tale, a strange shift occurs again. Compelled by the spirits now dwelling within him, Sakai sets out to reclaim the Sword of Storms. He makes his way to the home of Toshio, a collector of ancient swords. Feigning scholarly curiosity, he asks to see Toshio's collection, but once he lays eyes on the Sword of Storms, he makes his move, the spirits within him driving his every action. As he attempts to seize the sword, the presence of the ancient samurai reawakens, its spirit resisting the intrusion. Toshio is left wounded, and his frantic distress call reaches the BPRD. Hellboy, Kate Corrigan, a folklorist and BPRD liaison, and Russell Thorne, a gifted psychic, are dispatched to investigate. During their investigation, Hellboy picks up an old katana and, in a flash of light and energy, disappears from their world. He finds himself in an otherworldly landscape, a realm reminiscent of feudal Japan, rich in mist and myth. A wise kitsune greets him and explains that the sword he holds is the true Sword of Storms. His only path home lies to the east, but the journey will not be easy. Hellboy travels across this dreamlike landscape, guided by the kitsune's cryptic wisdom. The demonic brothers, still possessing Sakai, send a gauntlet of yokai to retrieve the sword. Hellboy faces off against a host of supernatural creatures. A kappa lurking by a riverbank, a trio of mischievous Rokurakubi with serpentine necks, a swarm of Nukakubi with detachable flying heads, and the venomous Yorogumo, a spider demon masquerading as a woman. In one of his most chilling encounters, he finds himself in a secluded village haunted by heads, a direct adaptation from the original Hellboy comic. Anyhow, he also battles the colossal skeleton Gashadokuro, confronts a group of Tengu warriors, and narrowly escapes the wrath of Yomotsu Shikome, fearsome hags of the underworld. Among these trials, he encounters the ghost of the daimyo's daughter, sorrowful and wandering, unable to find peace. All of the Japanese mythical creatures are drawn from authentic mythological sources. This was possible because Madhouse, which animated the movie, is a renowned Japanese studio. It has animated some of the famous anime like Beyblade, Hunter x Hunter, One Punch Man, etc. Anyhow, back to Hellboy. Our protagonist is fighting here for his survival. Abe and Liz are summoned to Japan to investigate a series of unnatural earthquakes. These tremors, it turns out, are not geological. They're the work of thunder and lightning, who are preparing to summon their draconic siblings. The ancient kitsune appears once more, guiding Abe and Liz to the dragon's emergence point. One dragon surfaces, its form immense and elemental. Liz, summoning all the control she can muster, uses her pyrokinetic abilities to hold it at bay. The power within her is volatile, but in this moment of crisis, she steadies herself and becomes a force of reckoning. Meanwhile, Sakai, still under the brothers' control, journeys to the sacred shrine where the daimyo sacrificed his daughter. Kate and Russell trail him, surviving an attack orchestrated by spirits and animated objects from Japanese folklore. At the shrine, fate draws them all together. In the alternate realm, Hellboy confronts a massive Oni who deceives him into breaking the Sword of Storms. Just before the final blow, the Oni vanishes, and the shattered sword releases thunder and lightning. Their spirits burst free, and Sakai collapses, freed but shaken. Hellboy is hurled back into the real world and finds himself at the shrine. A climactic battle unfolds. With strength and sheer will, Hellboy subdues the spirits and rebinds them into the sword. Simultaneously, the dragons are sucked back into the underworld, their connection to the world severed. But the turmoil isn't over. The shrine becomes a stage for one final haunting. The spirits of the daimyo's daughter and the Lord himself possess Kate and Russell, reenacting the moment of her execution in an endless cycle. In a desperate bid to save his team, Hellboy inadvertently breaks the enchantment imprisoning the stone warrior, the loyal samurai of old. The presence of the awakened warrior shifts the tide. Hellboy, ever the bridge between worlds, does not fight, he reasons. He speaks to the daimyo, appealing to his pride and his pain. Slowly, the daimyo sees the truth, that his promise was unjust and his wrath misguided. In an act of grace long denied, he forgives his daughter and the warrior. With that, the cycle is broken, the spirits are freed, and peace returns. The shrine, once heavy with grief, feels lighter. The BPRD team stands in the quiet aftermath, bound not just by duty, but by the weight of what they've witnessed. A tale of love, vengeance, sacrifice, and redemption that spanned centuries. And somewhere far from there, the kitsune watches from the shadows, her eyes glowing softly, a silent guardian of a world where myth still breathes, and where even a demon like Hellboy can be a hero. Hellboy Animated, Blood and Iron, 2007. It begins in the damp, echoing depths of an underground sewage tunnel. A mysterious woman watches from the shadows, her gaze fixed on a hulking red figure, Hellboy. He trudges forward, unfazed by the muck, flanked by Abe Sapien. Together, they confront and dismantle a towering minotaur-like robot with startling ease. The woman remains hidden, her eyes narrowing in confusion and wonder. She wonders aloud how a creature like Hellboy could have been turned against his own kind. The story then slips back to 1939. A young Professor Trevor Bruttenholm, still years from becoming the wise man Hellboy would one day know, journeys to a crumbling castle nestled just beyond a weathered graveyard. Accompanied by a priest and a team of men, he is in search of missing girls, one of whom, named Anna, has not returned from a school trip. As they explore the grim interiors of the castle, they uncover skeletal remains, unmistakably those of young girls. The place is soaked in dread and legend. It belonged to Ersebet Ondrushko, a vampiress who was said to have bargained with the goddess Hecate, the queen of witches. Ersebet, it was said, bathed in the blood of the innocent to remain eternally young. The trail of blood leads them deeper into the fortress, ending in a macabre inner chamber. There lies Anna, her body pale and lifeless, the tub beside her filled with her blood. Horror washes over the group. Suddenly, the predator makes her entrance. Ersebet strikes swiftly, snatching one of the men. Panic splinters the group, scattering them through the castle's haunted halls as wolves, phantom-like and blood-hungry, join the attack. Only Broom holds his ground. The vampiress eventually finds him. In a moment of sharp clarity and courage, Broom hurls holy water at her, the liquid searing her skin. Enraged, she attacks, unaware that Broom has lured her to a weakened section of the wall. As they struggle, the two crash through into daylight. Sunlight ignites Ersebet's cursed body, consuming her with furious intensity, but she does not perish completely. Her ashes swirl, then sweep away, drawn back to her home, into the waiting arms of a statue of Hecate. For now, Broom is safe. His team is gone, but he has survived. He leaves Eastern Europe behind, heading to Germany, unaware that destiny would soon lead him to Hellboy. Years pass. Now an old man, Professor Broom wakes from another nightmare, the same one that's haunted him since the castle. He stares into his mirror and, for a moment, sees blood on his hands. Behind him, the vision of Ersebet looms, but it's only a dream or a memory too heavy to fade. Hellboy interrupts the moment, reminding Broom it's time for breakfast. At the table, he's joined by Liz Sherman and Abe Sapien. Corrigan, their handler, briefs them on new missions. Hellboy is to head to Tibet. Abe and Liz are bound for British Columbia. But before they disperse, Corrigan slides one more case across the table, a haunted mansion in the Hamptons. To everyone's surprise, Broom insists on investigating the site himself. It's a shock. He hasn't taken on fieldwork in over 6 years. He assembles a team: Hellboy, Liz, Abe, and a newcomer named Sidney Leach, a human metal detector and rookie agent with no field experience. During the trip, the team speculates about the professor's sudden interest in this case. Hellboy is suspicious. He knows Broom well enough to sense there's more to this than simple ghost rumours. The professor remains vague, but his thoughts are far away, haunted by the memories of Ersebet's castle. They arrive at the mansion, where a butler greets them and introduces them to Oliver Trumblot, the new owner. As they enter, they're unaware of the dozen or more female spirits silently observing them from every corner. Inside, Oliver takes them to the library, where they set up monitoring equipment. The team then splits up to install cameras across the house. Strange phenomena begin almost immediately: cold spots, flickering lights, faint whispers. But what starts as a typical haunting quickly escalates. The house doesn't hold one ghost, but hundreds. It belonged to Ersebet Ondrushko. Trumblot, eager to share his own obsession, unveils his personal collection, artifacts from Ersebet's original castle, imported at great expense. He brings in a wax statue of the Countess herself. Broom is horrified to see Ersebet's statue since, for a second, he thought she was almost real. The scene flashes back to Ersebet's final moments. Her manipulation, her seduction of the priest with the promise of power. She tells the priest that his god is only a statue, while her goddess is as real as a living thing. Hecate offers much more than the false god the priest prays to. Back in the present, the team splits again to investigate the mansion's darker corners. Broom stays in the library with Liz. Meanwhile, in the shadows, Ersebet's 2 hag-like minions, witches twisted into monstrous forms, begin their ritual to summon her once more. In a memory, we see how Ersebet once lured young Anna, using her hags and spectral wolves to corral the innocent girl into her lair. She lures Anna in and gifts her the most wonderful wedding dress. Being a young bride-to-be, Anna is simply happy to wear her beautiful gown, unaware that she's like a butterfly caught in a spider's web. Back to the present, that same terror now repeats. In the mansion, a chilling howl echoes. Oliver Trumblot is attacked by the phantom wolves. His screams alert the team. Liz and Broom race to the scene, joined by Hellboy, Abe, and Leach. The trail leads them to the torture chamber, now soaked in blood. Oliver lies lifeless, his body drained. The same tub from years ago is here again, filled. The old man stands in the corner. As Broom looks at the old man, recognition dawns. This man is the priest from that terrible night decades ago. The old priest confesses the location of the hag's summoning site, and Broom, ever the man of compassion, leaves a cross in his hand for protection. But as the team leaves, the hags descend upon him, transforming him into a monstrous, beastly thing, a twisted servant for their mistress. The group hurries to intercept the resurrection, but the beast finds them first. A brutal fight breaks out in which Abe is captured and carried off by the hags. Meanwhile, Hellboy wrestles the beast, claws clashing against claws. On the other hand, Liz and Broom continue forward, unaware they are already too late. In the summoning chamber, Ersebet rises. Hellboy finally defeats the beast, but when he races to where Broom and Liz are, he comes face to face with Ersebet herself. The vampiress summons her goddess Hecate, who takes Hellboy out of the picture. With Hellboy gone, Ersebet once again turns her attention to Broom and Liz. She attacks Liz, but the younger woman holds her own, her pyrokinesis flaring brightly, but she is knocked unconscious. Ersebet captures Broom and disappears. Meanwhile, Abe escapes and reunites with Liz, who was just getting back her strength. On the other hand, the ancient goddess who granted Ersebet her power has been watching Hellboy from the shadows, finally appears in front of him. Remember how a mysterious woman was watching Hellboy at the beginning of the movie? Yes, that was Hecate, waiting for her chance. Now she offers him a truth, that he is meant for more, meant to bring about the end of mankind. She asks him to embrace his destiny. Hellboy refuses. He's heard it all before. However, Hecate is not someone who is appeased by a mere refusal. She eventually attacks Hellboy, and a fierce battle ensues. Meanwhile, Ersebet has let go of Professor Broom as she readies herself for her youth-rejuvenating bath. Talk about skin rejuvenation. But deep within the house, Broom prepares to finish what began decades ago. He has mixed Ersebet's bloodbath with holy water. As she sinks into it, unknown for a moment, her youth returns to her, but as she walks out of the tub, the divine purity sears her once again, like last time. Meanwhile, the battle between Hecate and Hellboy is growing dangerous. With each blow, Hecate swells in power and size, becoming more monstrous and divine. But Hellboy notices something: her weakness, sunlight. As the light strikes her, she begins to revert, and her living form crumbles back into a statue. Hellboy does not stop there though. He opens the core of the statue, and from it, a snake slithers out, Hecate's essence, retreating into the earth. The victory is won, but everything has a price. The toll of their entire ordeal dawns on Hellboy, leaving him unconscious. Later on, he wakes in his bed as Professor Broom sits beside him, quietly reading a newspaper. With that, we come to an end to this wonderful saga of Hellboy animated movies. As mentioned back in the introduction, a third movie was on its way, but was unfortunately cancelled. You can actually see the premise being set in the last flashback of Hellboy, Blood and Iron, which shows a picture of a claw being shown to Professor Broom. The third movie was Hellboy, the Phantom Claw. Yet, even without a third installment flapping about, Hellboy, Sword of Storms, 2006, and Hellboy, Blood and Iron, 2007, have surely carved out a cult following. And who could blame them, really? Indeed, these films might not have made the same box office waves as their live-action parts, but both fans and critics tip their hats to their atmospheric animation, loyal vibe, and the way they capture the essence of Mignola's original comics. They particularly enjoyed the comeback of Ron Perlman, Selma Blair, and Doug Jones, whose vocal talents anchored the tales in that delightful blend of grit and the supernatural that endeared the live-action films to fans. So, while they might not have launched a toy line of Hellboy toys based on these movies, they certainly managed to bottle something special, a delightful mix of pulp fiction that is filled with supernatural folklore. But it also had a dash of quiet introspection that's rarely seen in the animated superhero realm. If you want more such content, please subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any updates, and like this video to give us your support.